Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Alright, y'all, today we're going over the staff behind Boruto episode 218. I always do this if you guys don't necessarily know what it is, and pretty much going to be telling you guys exactly how it should be looking regarding the actual people working on the episode. By the way, the information comes from Anime Blue. Anime Blue has like a big thread of like damn near all the staff coming from the episodes, literally hundreds of episodes, even back to Naruto Shippuden, which is crazy. But regardless, he has episode 219 as well, so if you guys want to go ahead and look at that. But without further ado, let's get into the actual staff behind this episode. Now, the past two episodes looked absolutely insane. Episode 216, episode 217. This episode right here, just looking off of the studio, it's not going to look that good, but it's still going to look good. Like, it's still going to look really good. So first things first, I always say, when dealing with the staff, you always have to look at the studio first. The studio behind this is going to be Studio Mouse. Now, Mouse in itself is not necessarily a bad studio. It's just not Studio Parrot, which is the studio that did the previous two episodes. Obviously, Studio Parrot is the GOAT. Mouse, though, is still a very good studio. Mouse was actually involved in two like elite fights back in Naruto Shippuden. One was Kakashi versus Pain. Looks-wise, some people might say it wasn't necessarily animated the best, but when we talk about fights, period, like, we all understand this fight right here was absolutely amazing. Like, there's no, you feel me, confusing this. Another one was Sasuke versus Danzo. This one was more on like the animation level. Like, this animation right here was actually fire. Yeah, so in regards to like the fight scenes, the animation, I think it's gonna be very, very good regardless. Even though, again, Para isn't behind it, Mouse is still a very, very good animation. And another one in Boruto, and this right here is gonna come from multiple people on the staff too, just to point this out. Boruto episode 163. This right here was when Deepa was actually involved. I think this right here was actually Deepa's first battle. This fight right here was really good. This is like obviously the first time that we did see Deepa actually in Boruto, or actually active in Boruto, so it had to be good. Mouse definitely has the potential of having absolutely elite animation, but the fight scenes itself are very good. All right, so now we're actually going to go in order. The director is Yusuke Anada. As I said, Boruto episode 163 is going to be a very popular one because Yusuke also worked on this episode as well. Again, this episode right here, in regards to animation, stuff like that, it was decent. It was not badly animated, but I think the biggest part about this episode right here was more of the overall aura. Same with Kakashi and Pain. It was more of the overall aura, how the episode and the actual fight felt. And I think that right there is definitely what we should be expecting. Again, not necessarily crazy animation like how Baryon Naruto versus Ishiki Otsutsuki was, but still a very good, well-rounded fight. All right, so now the next one is going to be the storyboard. The storyboard is actually written by Atsushi Wakabayashi. This right here is interesting in itself. The OG Naruto fans are probably going to have a lot of appreciation for Atsushi. Atsushi actually worked on Orochimaru versus Third Hokage. Now again, similar to the last staff members, I wouldn't necessarily say that this fight was like on the level of like a Ishiki Otsutsuki versus Baryon Naruto. We're not necessarily saying that, but the overall aura and feel around this episode plus the overall fight itself was absolutely amazing. I think that right there is definitely what we should be expecting. Now, Atsushi being on an episode like this is definitely a very good thing. And obviously, even though I did say a Naruto Shippuden fight, I do have to reference a good Boruto fight as well. So Atsushi also worked on Boruto episode 169. I believe that right there was actually when Deepa fought against Shinki. And I'm not gonna lie, in regards to animation, this right here was actually good. Like, this right here was surprising. No one really expected this right here to be animated like this good, but it just was. We don't really know why, you feel me? But we all liked it. Like, we all enjoyed it. Now again, is it going to be Baryon mode versus Ishiki? No, I think one thing that I should tell you guys right now, probably never expect that again, except for like the next huge fight. But regardless, animation wise, this right here was still really, really good. All right, next we have the anime directors. This right here is going to be very interesting. All right, so first things first, we have Kosei Takahashi. Kosei Takahashi also worked on Boruto episode 63. Again, the ones that I showed pretty much like 3 times already. Deepa versus Omui, the first time that we did see Deepa in actual action. But the big one is going to be Ichiro Uno. Ichiro Uno is like the GOAT of everything. Ichiro Uno would be on a quote-unquote God Squad if there was a quote-unquote God Squad. I haven't necessarily seen a God Squad Squad yet, even though a lot of people might even argue with me that Boruto episode 217 was an actual God Squad. That right there is definitely debatable. I'll definitely take some ears open for that, because as soon as I seen that, I said at least a dream team, my guys. At least it was a dream. It was at least a dream team. But Ichiro Uno wasn't on that episode, surprisingly enough. But Ichiro Uno's been on episodes like Boruto episode 65, which I'm pretty sure we all know is Naruto and Sasuke versus Momoshiki. This right here, essentially, up to last episode, was well regarded as the best looking episode of Boruto, possibly the best looking episode animation wise and choreography wise of all of anime, or of all of Naruto, I should say. This right here looked absolutely amazing. It wasn't even necessarily close in regards to Naruto fight specifically. Like we all knew, like, this right here was the GOAT. This right here was the GOAT. Not only that, and also Boruto episode 189. One thing that a lot of people say from this episode specifically is like they like the designs of not only Boruto but also Konohamaru, Kawaki, all the other characters. That came from Ichiro Uno. Ichiro Uno was also on this episode. People say to this date also that this right here, animation wise, just strictly animation wise, not necessarily choreography, not necessarily all that, just strictly animation, this right here might be the best. People say that this right here might just be flat out the best animation, and I kind of agree. Again, it's debatable. I think people go back and forth with episode 65, this episode, and in fact the last episode of Boruto. But also Ichiro Uno also worked on episode 204, Boruto episode 204. This right here was actually Jigen versus Naruto and Sasuke. I actually didn't even watch Afro react to this, but regardless, this episode right here was absolutely amazing. We all know this right here, in regards to, well, at that time, was in the top 3. Now it's probably like number 4 behind the past 3 that I did just name. But again, Ichiro Uno has pretty much been on literally all the Elite episodes. Like, it's been insane. Like, it's been insane. But he's gonna be on this episode again. I don't necessarily expect him to be in his prime form, because when he's paired up with Studio Pierrot, which is like the GOAT studio, he is in his prime, but he's on Studio Mouse. Again, I expect Ichiro Uno to make a lot of very good adjustments. I expect this episode to look very, very good, just because of the sheer fact that a Mouse and Ichiro Uno are going to be on it, and also some very reputable names also are going to be on it. So Ichiro being on this episode is definitely a very good thing. Now, the screenplay is going to be done by Masaya Honda. If you guys don't necessarily know, Masaya Honda did the last 2 episodes, Boruto episode 216 and Boruto episode 217. So it's only right that he's going to be on Boruto episode 218 as well. It's going to be a very, very legendary 3-episode streak if this episode is done well. Like, if this is the case, Masaya Honda would officially be inducted into a quote-unquote God Squad, if there was an actual God Squad. I'll probably make a video just detailing what a God Squad would look like. If that is the case, he'd be officially slotted in there 100%. But this team right here, it's taken a lot out of me to not necessarily name it a dream team. I'm gonna give it the same thing I gave 216 at first, which is like a borderline dream team. This right here could very, very well be a dream team. If it was Studio Pierrot, my guys, it would no doubt be a dream team. But Mouse, I'm gonna say it's going to be a decent team. Another thing about this episode specifically, and it might be a little bit of spoilers, but there isn't going to be as much action in this episode as there was the last 2 episodes. But regardless, again, this episode is going to look good. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. But it's been your boy, BarB, and we out.
It's a knife.